Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. It is Sunday, August 16th, 2020, and this is Breaking Late News with Travis. Yay!
Hey!
Travis is back, everybody. How the hell are you, my friend?
Tired.
There was a lot in that I could just tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been for those who keep track of these things, I did not realize this until I looked it up last night, Travis. We have not talked in a podcast situation since last October.
That's so sad.
We were going to do a Breaking Late News on the C2E2 news last March, but that fell through because of work. And so, it's been far too long since your voice has graced the podcast waves here on the show. So I'm glad to have you back, my friend. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And when I heard this news this week, so what we're going to talk about is the big the DC implosion is what at least one source I read called it, which I thought was kind of a cute callback, but also, but we're going to talk about the DC layoffs that happened and the editorial reshuffling and what that could mean, or just get some reactions because Travis and we are longtime DC Comics fans.
Yep.
And really, and I talked about this on one of my 10th anniversary shows, Travis, featuring you. That was the first one second one I did, where we were, we got together and started talking. We've been friends forever and we love comics. You have your own YouTube channel, Oddfellows Thoughts, where when you have time, which you haven't had an abundance of recently.
It's 10 months since we talked. It's probably been 8 months since I've done a video. I've done a video this year. The pandemic.
I think
the pandemic has kind of like sucked the wind out of a lot of stuff. I'm more than a month behind on reading comics, which for me is not normal, or I guess it's the new normal. I don't know. Kind of a thing.
What is the normal now? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Oh, I hear you, man. I've got some books that have been stacking up, and I don't know what it. I hate to use the word depression, but because I don't think I'm depressed, but it's been weird because normally when I have comics, I immediately read them, and they've just been sitting there.
Yeah,
and I don't exactly know why, and it's not. It wasn't just because they're there for a while. We weren't getting any new comics,
right?
At all, right?
Yeah.
But when that stuff picked up, or came back, I should say, normally I would just devour them and want to podcast about them or write about them or whatever. And I just haven't felt that compulsion like I had been. So it's been a very strange year.
Yeah. For me, it's been a combination of just generally feeling tired all the time, which I think is the the quasi depression of just how things are currently operating.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's a lack of concentration. I mean, you think, it's 22 pages. How hard is it to concentrate through it? But I don't know. I've found I've found other entertainment that is easier for me to consume. So I've been consuming it more so than comic books.
Yeah. So I assume television, video games.
Yeah. Because I don't know. It's a little easier to just. I don't have to think the same sort of way that I like to think when I'm reading a comic.
It's much more passive, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. Here, last weekend I read a bunch of books. I can't name anything right offhand, but I read a lot of books, and I was like, and I read a whhole bunch. I actually had enough time to sit down and read 5 or 6 books in one shot, and I'm like, this is awesome. I like this. So maybe if I can squeeze the time, so I'm a little more excited about reading books now. I guess.
So do you think
read the right ones? I don't know.
Well, that could be, yeah. Or maybe it's just taken a little while for the momentum, so to speak, comic books to get us back into the saddle, so to speak.
Right.
I don't know. Right. It's like I said, it's been a weird year. like I said, Travis and I talked last October about the New York Comic Con news, and it's funny, Travis, because in the course of gathering my notes for what we're going to talk about here, it was announced. I saw on Twitter that New York Comic Con for 2020 has been canceled. So that's kind of this weird symmetry.
They just are announcing that it's canceled?
Yeah.
I would have assumed that anything was happening this year was done.
I think a lot of these cons and other group activity type stuff, they've been really, fingers crossed. They're taking that fingers crossed approach, and they could actually do it. But
I get it, because you don't want to call that until you absolutely have to. Because I can't imagine what that does to you financially, if nothing else. Because I'm assuming that a certain amount of what you make one year is what allows you to operate the next year.
Yeah.
So you lose that operate. I don't, have no idea, but I would think that could be pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
And those cons that are early in the year, next year, or would have been early in the year next year, how are they going to operate? Because I don't know. I don't see anything out there that says that the world is going to change in the next
year.
Because don't they? Because what? Emerald City Comic Con, they're in Seattle, is one of the early ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the early big ones. It's March, April, typically, right?
Right.
Don't they have to start making a plan by now?
Yes.
For what that's going to look like?
Normally, aren't we buying tickets around October?
Yeah, I think so.
And I know that they pushed theirs out. It was supposed to be sometime this fall, but I think they finally canceled too.
Yeah, the rescheduling. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You could get your money back for your tickets, or you could get new tickets. Yeah. I guess I haven't paid any attention. It's a con. I don't know. Cons feel like a different world now.
Oh yeah. Well, and I don't know. Did you have a chance to view any of the San Diego Comic-Con quote unquote panels?
No.
on YouTube? Yeah, that was interesting. I took part of part of that weekend and watched quite a few of those. So if that's the new con experience, it's fine. It's interesting to I guess consume that content in that way, but it certainly was not like being there in person, of course.
Well, yeah.
Way different experience, but okay. So, like I said, we are here to talk about the DC news, the DC Comics news. So I'm just going to give a quick synopsis of what this is, and we'll talk about it. And there's some things that Travis and I are going to discuss. Just to let people know, this information this is a summary that I pulled from various sources, mostly and starting with The Hollywood Reporter, which is interesting, Travis, because there's a later interview with that The Hollywood Reporter did with Jim Lee, and I've noticed, and I don't have the numbers, but it's in the back of my brain, or the back of my brain says, hey, it seems like The Hollywood Reporter seems to be getting a lot more of these kinds of or not these kinds of stories, but seem to be publishing a lot more stories involving, I'll say, DC Comics generally, than traditional comic book news resources. So I find that very interesting. Maybe it's just because they're in California. I don't know, but it's a little side point that I was like, that's weird. But anyway, so there's that one. The Beat picked it up as well. Comicbook.com and Newsarama also added some bits from quote unquote insider sources.
Yeah.
Which I, take this information with a grain of salt, of course, but anyway, so, but I think really this started with The Hollywood Reporter. So, like I said, it's August 16th as we sit here and record this. 6 days ago, August 10th. So I'm gonna read this bit here. Many DC Comics executives and editorial staff were laid off, including editor-in-chief Bob Harris, Senior VP of Publishing Strategy and Support Services, they have such long titles, Hank Cannells, VP of Marketing and Creative Services, Jonah Weiland, VP Global Publishing Initiatives and Digital Strategy, Bobby Chase, so long, and editors Brian Cunningham, Mark Doyle, and Andy Curry. Also, the majority of the staff of the streaming service DC Universe were laid off, which greatly concerns me. And DC Direct, the company's in-house merchandise and collectibles manufacturer for the last 22 years, has been closed down. So lots of stuff happening. Jim Lee, however, remains Chief Creative Officer. And based on one of the reports I read, a general manager is being brought in to work with Lee from the world, the quote was, from the world of esports, possibly. Which, that just blew my mind. Anyway, Lee said something about that person would start in September to basically run the operational side of things, which I always kind of thought that was Dan DiDio's part of being co-publisher, but who knows exactly how that works. And because of these editorial dismissals, DC editorial will be headed up by Marie Javins, who was working as executive editor of Global Publishing Initiatives and Digital Strategy, and Michelle Wells, the executive editor of DC Children's Young Adult line, I guess. So the two of them are going to take over editorial for Bob Harris. And that's not all. This is speculation. I think, well, this next bit's a speculation from the beat. The Black Label line of comic books from DC may be phased out, but remain a label for collected editions, which they've already done a little bit of that.
Yeah,
right?
we saw that coming. I mean, it's
I mean, I think with you, I complained on one of these episodes about having gotten an All-Star Superman trade collection, and it was labeled as Black Label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Watchmen.
But and this when I saw this bit of news, Travis, this is really when I wanted to talk to you, or why I wanted to talk to you. But the DC Comics advanced solicitations for November just came out this week as well, and several books have been indicated as being canceled, including Teen Titans, Young Justice from Bendis's line, Suicide Squad, which I have been hearing nothing but
it's been super fun,
awesome stuff. Yeah, so I was looking forward to getting the trades.
Yeah,
and sadness for me in particular, and I know the next one is for you, Hawkman with issue number 29, and then also John Constantine, Hellblazer, which I know you have said many times on Twitter. I've seen that you think it's one of the best books out there right now, right? Or
yes.
am I okay? Good.
No, definitely, and a superior Hellblazer. I mean, comparing it to the stuff that happened after Vertigo, and even if you take the 300 issues prior to that, this is some exceptional stuff.
What?
Yeah.
This run. This is written by Cy Spurrier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember the artists.
Campbell's on our his first name, but okay. Campbell. Mm-hmm.
You're saying that this run is better than the 300 issues that we got previously, and the other titles that after the New 52 started.
It has stronger like 2 or 3 issue stories than the majority of all those 300 issues from the Vertigo run.
Oh my God, really? And
in the same way that a lot of the Vertigo run would be relevant to kind of what was happening at the time, the early stuff, taking shots at and comments on like Margaret Thatcher's England and whatnot. The current stuff continues to grab from just the current environment that we have going on and whatnot. And I just think it's relevant in other ways and whatnot. And they capture John so well, and the use of language. They're very specific about that John comes from a particular place, so he has a particular accent that does not get lost anywhere along the way. I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff about it that's just really
wow. I would never have imagined that you would say such things about a later version of Constantine.
And so it's because it harkens back to that original stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's just sourcing the original stuff, but it's in that vein. It's in that idea. Mm-hmm. Whereas since they shut the Vertigo down, then they kind of made him like a action hero, superhero-ish kind of thing. I mean, he's all right, I guess, in the Justice League Dark, which I enjoy that book. I enjoy Justice League Dark. He's all right there. But the stuff that's been in between that has not been, except for very brief moments, has not been enjoyable. It's not. doesn't capture that. So
Yeah.
anyway, we digress on too much Hellblazer, but I really enjoyed the book and bummed that it's gone. But my understanding is 12 issues is what they signed on for. That was what the original thing was. Do the best you can do with 12 issues. Let's see what happens. Of course, then COVID hits, and kind of that to me sounds like is one of the biggest killers. And these books that you've listed, I think it's coincidence, my opinion. Not that I know anything that's going on behind the scenes. It's coincidence that this stuff is all ending in the same. We're hearing about it going to be ending the same week of this culling of salaried people at DC. Because wasn't this stuff all kind of starting to line up with the supposed next Dan Didio,
the generation stuff,
generations or whatever. So I mean, this was all kind of, to some degree, these books were all kind of potentially on a list of stopping and starting anew anyway, weren't they?
Possibly, yeah.
I mean, because this isn't all of them. I mean, Batgirl's gone.
That's true. Yeah.
Batman the Outsider. There's a. I mean, and Batman the Outsiders. I don't know a lot of people read that, but like Batgirl's a pretty staple book, and Supergirl are pretty. I mean, so those had already been announced that they were leaving. It's just a matter of now what's taking its place, right? Whereas before we would have suspected that this stuff was going away because they're going to roll out the next New 52 or whatever it was going to be, right? The next whatever that thing was going to be was going to roll out. Now there's no one at the steering wheel. I don't feel like Jim Lee's ever been at the steering wheel. Just my personal opinion. I have nothing against Jim Lee.
Right.
I feel like he's. I don't know. He's Jim Lee, and so that makes everything okay because he's Jim Lee, and he's cool because he did this cool stuff. He did Hush or whatever back in the day. But it never feels like, other than the online game, I don't know. It's never felt like he's been the influence behind anything.
Well, you bring up a good point because because before Dan DiDio was let go. Several months back,
or maybe just Dan took it all on his shoulders, regardless.
Exactly,
because that's his job.
Yeah,
because that's his job.
He was the point man. He was, if you look at it from a political standpoint, DiDio was like the VP in an election time because the VP goes out there and takes all the hits and makes all the or belts out the hits too, while the president just kind of sits back and
are you implying that Jim Lee's the president?
I know it's a messed up analogy. I know.
Okay.
But that's just where my mind went. Anyway, so but yeah, I think DiDio was the voice of the company and he had the spotlight on him, and Jim Lee was doing stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. That's kind of my impression of Jim Lee as well. It's like he was co-publisher. Well, he's been actually publisher for since DiDio was let go. He's chief creative officer, and yet all I ever see him doing in terms of the business side of comics is reacting to news coming out of DC Comics.
Well, I guess I have seen a couple creators say recently, "Oh, hey, Jim Lee contacted me to redesign this costume or whatever." So I mean,
I'm sure. Yeah,
so he is making phone calls. I was just saying, as we imply he does nothing.
No. I don't think that at all. It's just that he's not the focal point. Even though that's his position though now. So I don't understand what he exactly he's doing. That's neither here nor there though. So
the Black Label thing that I also find curious. There's still a lot of Black Label stories that were solicited when Black Label was first created. We have not seen yet. Are we going to see that? And I have books that I'm reading that are monthlies that are Black Label books. Last God. Matter of fact, I just read it before we came on. My latest issue of it anyway, which is almost a month old now. But and I'm like, what happens to those if Black Label is going away? Are they just comics or what?
Yeah. How are they going to brand these things or in what? Yeah. How are they going to publish them? Exactly. Well, and how are they going to publish comics is part of this discussion too. We'll get to that. Did you have any other reactions besides the cancellation of comics and as far as the news, the stuff that I just summarized?
Well, so if you're watching industry part of it, I think you could kind of guess that something was going to be happening with the AT&T buying stuff and whatnot. There's I don't know. I mean, I clearly don't know. I don't work there, so I don't know. I would have never called this an implosion, though. An implosion implies that they blew themselves up from within, and that's not the case.
Oh, yeah,
Somebody
exactly.
from the outside came through and went. And to me, just looking at the people's names, and there's a ton of people we don't know about. I mean, if you follow any of the creators or people in the know, or we assume are in the know, like on Twitter and whatnot, that there's tons of non-named people that got.
Oh yeah, wasn't it up to a third?
Yeah. So all of these people, and in my mind, all these people that had salary jobs, right? The people who did the nuts and bolts, the daily work.
Mm-hmm.
The people who made sure there was paper in the copying machine and that sort of thing. They're all gone. This to me doesn't look like, other than books being canceled, didn't really affect freelancers per se,
right?
Other than they had to find new titles to work on, obviously. But that's always kind of, as a freelancer, that's the life of a freelancer, right? You work on a book for a while, then you move on to something else. It wasn't the creative that got hammered in this. It was the people that glue the books together that keep all those wild talents in line to give us what we need, or at least that's, I'm assuming, the stuff they do. And like the regular editors that they, Mark Doyle specifically, is a huge loss in my mind. Mm-hmm. He's championed most things that I think were interesting, either because he was asked to do it, or he had to fill in because they earlier had called other editorial people out and whatnot. So I think he's a huge loss. Andy Curry, I think, is the same way. I don't know. I just think those are really talented people, and why them?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was thinking too.
Over some of the editors, they're there. Is it because those other editors are editing, darling projects right now? You're not going to get rid of the people who are on, Scott Snyder or Tom King's books because they're the important people at DC creatively right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. So I worry. You get rid of that many people who are probably people who've done it for a lot of years. They understand how the machine works, and you take the engineers away. What happens?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's what I was thinking about this too. Maybe I can see getting rid of Bob Harris. He's not always been my favorite person in comics anyway. But yeah, the Mark Doyles and the Andy Currys, whatnot. So why would you get rid of that institutional knowledge? And, who knows? Maybe the people underneath Doyle and Curry are being now given opportunities, which could work out just fine, right? But yeah, we're just talking about what information has been provided to us. There's still a lot of stuff that we don't know about. You mentioned AT&T, having basically bought DC Comics, and there's a lot of speculation, a lot of conspiracy theories going around, and we're going to talk about some of that hopefully here in a little bit. But just generally speaking, considering what happened because of the pandemic and a lot of things just kind of shut down, which is the appropriate thing that we should be doing still. But it makes a lot of sense to me that I assume a multi-billion-dollar company would take a look at its assets and make some cuts. It's unfortunate that all these people, dozens, if not, I know, who knows, hundreds of people may have lost their jobs because of this restructuring, this change. But that happens in times like this, where the parent company isn't making the money, and so they have to tighten the belts. God, I hope my company never has to do that. But yeah, right. It's unfortunate for those people, but selfishly, what does that do, for the stuff that DC Comics produces? So that's kind of what we're going to get into now. Again, a lot of this is speculation on some sources' part, things I've seen on Twitter. But I just kind of wanted us to chat about it, because like I said, we love DC Comics. Even though, DC Comics is not the company that it was when we first got into reading DC Comics, but that does not matter because we love the characters. in some cases, we probably really love some of the creators too, and we follow them through the things that they've been doing throughout the years, right?
Right.
So let's see here. A couple things I want to touch on. So this is from The Beat. Several people suggested that these layoffs were just paving the way for DC to license out their comics publishing within a year or two. Will they just license out the DC characters to other publishers? Could you imagine?
No.
and this is Jerry Conway, noted comic writer. I know.
Oh.
But did you read his whole thread on that?
I got nothing. That groans. Nothing against Jerry Conway.
Right.
Jerry Conway's great and whatnot. This was just really dark. Really,
yeah, exactly.
Really just,
So yeah, an interesting, a longtime person who's worked for both companies, both big two companies. So he has this interesting, I think, an interesting viewpoint of the industry. And so he said, this time next year, I predict Marvel will own about 90% of the new monthly comic market. And don't they own I should have looked this up. I want to say 70%. That's too high.
No, it's too high.
60% then.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think so. In which case, retail comic shops are done, Conway says. DC Comics will probably publish reprints and a handful, dozen of new digital-only monthly series intended for graphic novel release. When the comic book and these are a couple tweets from a thread of things, so people should go check out Jerry Conway's Twitter feed and find the whole thread. But when the comic book retail market collapses, Marvel too will have to turn to a digital monthly print graphic novel format for a reduced number of titles. It's simple economics. The business has relied too long on a fragile distribution model. COVID-19 and AT&T have broken it.
End quote.
End quote. Yes. I mean, that's what really got me thinking. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this with Travis and get your reactions to it and just kind of talk through it, because man, that I actually got legitimately concerned about what the future of comics is generally, not just DC Comics, but comic books as we understand comic books today, what that means going forward.
Yeah. This is super dark. That was my comment when you basically retweeted this. I was like, oh, this is really dark and really grim. But I don't know. I can't remember for how many years I've basically said if something happens to one of the big two, whether you want to call them the big two or your thoughts on superhero comics or whatever, with the distribution model the way it was pre-pandemic, with the distribution model it was, if one of those two legs basically breaks, it will take the entire distribution down with it, because all of these smaller books, which I love, are all riding on the coattails of the distribution machine that Marvel and DC prop up. Is how I see it, is how it operates. Volume.
Do you mean? But do you mean what books are riding the would you say the coattails? Are you talking about like the independent books that you like to read? Okay,
well, right. The Image, your Image.
Right. I know if you were talking about that
or
like the lower selling titles within the Marvel and DC lineup. Those two, obviously, but
that too. But I'm talking about all the other companies. That's why I think one of the reasons why people are freaking out with DC wanting to use different distributions and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
That everybody's been sold on the idea, wrong or right, that Diamond has to have all that together to financially be able to operate. I work in an industry that kind of operates the same way, in that big things pay for us to get from point A to point B, and in that process, we take lots of littler stuff along for the ride, kind of a deal. And if so, like I said, so if either one of these legs fall down, then the whole system potentially falls down. And that's kind of what it feels like Conway's saying, and that in his belief is that, if DC doesn't really have anything going on, they're not producing anything, and Marvel is the only one that's producing it, then Marvel basically makes whatever decision they want to. But I also think, just from a general standpoint, if the amount of product is maybe it. I mean, because I don't know comic retail really well. Maybe having less things on the stand is better, but not having those DC books. And if you're you and me, who are the DC fans, who are mostly showing up for the DC book to buy off the shelf, and that's not there, do we quit coming in to buy? And so then the whole thing shrivels and falls down because of that. I'm not excited by the fact over the idea of, we're just going to do digital releases and then
I knew you wouldn't like this.
and then maybe we'll get a graphic novel out of it at the end. I don't like that at all. I don't like that for a lot of reasons. I don't think I'm getting a proper book when it's done that way. But they kind of did that to me anyway. DC did, in the fact that because of the COVID stuff, some of our books didn't get physical releases. The final arc of Lucifer, which is another excellent book. The last issue of an arc, all you could get was it digitally, or you go buy the trade to get the final 20 pages of that arc. And then the whole next arc is only going to be released as a trade.
Oh, wow.
Which sucks. I'm a single issue person, not saying that I won't go buy a trade, because I will, because it's that good. And unfortunately, I'm probably going to go buy the darn trade before it, so I have that single 20 pages that I need, which irritates me. There were a couple other books that happened to that I have no intention of. I can't remember what they are, but I have no intention of finishing it. Screw that. Well, I'm not going to pay for 4 issues and then go buy a trade that has 5 issues in it to get that 5th issue.
I'm in that boat with Jane Foster Valkyrie.
Yeah.
The last issue. Yeah. Yeah. So I decided, nope, I'm done with the last issue that it got printed and shipped to me. Yeah. Which is unfortunate, because I really like that book.
Right. But I'm not going to pay twice for it. And that's kind of what that ends up being. I've already paid a trade's worth of money for it, buying it in single issues, and then you want me to do it again. That's maybe that's good business for you, but that's not a way to treat a customer from just a pure customer standpoint. I get it. COVID screwed up a bunch of stuff.
Oh yeah.
COVID exposed what we already knew was fragile, the whole shipping thing. Really, we should have had a conversation when COVID hit and
Well, I wanted to, but at that time it was not good for either of us to do anything. We had no time because of, and it wasn't because of COVID per se. It was work for both of us at that time. We were just both super busy with work, and you still are. So
yeah. But like I said, it's scary. I don't know. I don't know what comes of this. I mean, it doesn't. I think in one of these things we're going to talk about, Lee does imply that maybe there's going to be more focused.
Yeah. So let's just get into that because this dovetails nicely into what we are talking about. So on August 14th, the Hollywood Reporter released an interview with Jim Lee. And so, what's next? Basically, is the question. And there were apparently the Hollywood Reporter collected some questions from people for Lee to answer. And so this is where we're gonna get into this. So, like I said, what did I say? So the Beat said paving the way for DC to license out their books. They actually specifically, I didn't put it in my notes, Travis, as you can see, but they specifically said something about Boom and Dark Horse, and I forget the other one now, but the IDW
is popular for taking other people's.
Yeah, exactly. So, but this is one of the questions that was asked. One rumor I heard this week is that DC is going to, and then we were just talking about this too, only sell trades and OGNs and make a deal with Marvel for them to publish DC Comics.
That's just stupid.
Well, okay. And so Jim Lee, his answer to this, and it says in the pre-interview, laughs, there is nothing further from the truth than that. I don't know where you would even connect those dots. Why would we ever do that? Well, I mean, okay, so look at it from one perspective. Of course he would say that, even if they were already making the deal. I'm not saying they are, but he would say things like that, right? Because he's the voice of the company and all that.
But he didn't really answer the question, though. I mean, so he's laughing about the ridiculous part of it, the idea that it would all go to Marvel. But he didn't answer the part about whether it was only going to sell trades and and
well,
OGN.
There is another bit in this interview that I think sort of kind of addresses it.
Right.
But that's the thing about this interview is that he didn't really get into. I mean, obviously, he wouldn't get into some details because probably not all the decisions have been made about what they're doing. This is very fresh. He's had to live with this for a week from the public perspective.
Right.
Who knows how long before that did he know about all this stuff? Who knows? But I will say I did find this out, Travis, when I was looking up how long ago that you and I last talked for the C2E2 news that we never did together. Lee addressed a similar rumor at a C2E2 panel back in March. So this whole thing about Marvel, DC licensing to Marvel, is just a thing it's like the head of a hydra. You cut off one and another pops up, 3 months later or something. So I just find that it's an interesting point.
It's not a point. To me that's pure conspiracy theory. Yeah. That's people who don't like DC screwing with everybody else.
Do you think it's the DC haters, or
I think it's quote unquote fake news. I think it's people who are just spinning garbage because they know it sows dissent and freaks people out and whatnot.
Clickbait type stuff.
That's my opinion. On it is that because that is so. No, I mean 3 weeks from now, watch I'm eating crow, but but that's so ridiculous. I mean, because that is truly their competition. I mean, it's truly their competition. Mm-hmm. Why it makes zero sense. It makes zero sense if you take comic books out of it completely and you're just talking about mining the IP, which we'll get into that too, I'm sure. There's Disney and Sony and what they own of all the Marvel stuff. And then there's Warner Brother, now AT&T, that own. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't makes zero sense to allow, unless you really think you're going to make billions of dollars because Marvel's going to somehow.
Yeah. The money making opportunities for licensing. I wouldn't think it would be enough for AT&T to license their stuff to Disney. But who knows? So, okay. And then, related to that, or I guess similar to that, what about the rumor that AT&T hates comics and wants to get out of the comic business?
I don't think AT&T knows what comics are, but
I think that is part of the problem. I mean, but you know what? I remember when Time Warner bought DC Comics, and I remember the same concerns and same discussion. It was bad.
Did it help? Let's go back and think about that, though. We all went, oh my God, the big corporation's going to buy it. It's going to be soulless. It doesn't care about comics. Did it care about comics? I don't know.
Yeah. So Lee's response to that was, I don't. And see, this is part of the problem, I think, with Lee, is the way that what he says, right? I don't think they want to stop us from publishing comics. I don't think.
Right.
Come on, man. That is kind of, I mean, that, conspiracy theory type stuff, that's kind of scary that he doesn't know. The publisher and CCO of the company doesn't know if his parent company wants to keep publishing comics or not. That's weird. But he did say also comics serve a lot of different purposes. And one of them is it's a great way to incubate ideas and creating the next great franchises. So there's your IP that you were talking about.
Well, we got the rest of that. We want to continue that. Why would we want to stop creating great content that can be used across the great enterprises?
The greater enterprise, yeah.
So, but my problem is nothing about that sounds like that's the plan. Is he selling that to AT&T now in this interview? Because that, to me, it does not. He does not exude confidence.
No, like exactly.
Because the problem is the beginning of that quote basically saying, I don't think they want us to do that. He should have come out and said, "No, that's crazy talk."
Yeah,
this is all the awesome stuff that it does.
Yes.
Besides comics being awesome, here's the rest of that.
Yeah. So how much of that is he just doesn't know what the plan is? I'm sure that's part of it, or is it just his own lack of savvy?
Lack of expertise in talking to us
and talking about exactly. So maybe they got rid of the deal a little too soon. I don't know. Oof. Yeah. So
that just kind of, because I mean that's been, I mean, we know that happens anyway.
Mhm.
Why? I mean, it's all about the Batman. It's all about the Batman, Superman. It's about the big things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's we've known that for a long time, and that always feels like that's, you know, the cynic in me is like, we're just going to get more of that, less everything else.
Yes, exactly.
What all disappeared up there? That list of everything that's not directly connected to the big three money makers for them, you know, and questionably, I don't, you know, the movies for Wonder Woman, but beyond that, I don't know, you know, I mean, it's, yeah, but that's the cynic in me ever since Time Warner took over. These corporations and AT&T, what the hell does it have to do with entertainment? Nothing really, other than they're buying entertainment things.
Yes. Yeah.
They are a phone company. They are a communication company.
I was going to say, what does the AT&T even do anymore?
Right.
Besides buy up other properties.
Right. So I mean, you know, the cynic in me, the person who just wants, you know, my pure entertainment in all the ways possible is bah humbug about the whole thing, because, you know, just let the creative people be creative, and
yeah,
you know, who cares about if it makes money or not, right? But I also get from a business standpoint, you know, they have to make business decisions.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
like I said earlier, yes.
In the grand scheme of things, I think comics is at least direct market superhero comics, because we need to define that, because there's a lot of comics that are outside of direct, but that make serious money. All that, you know, young adult and children's stuff that's where all the money's at in comics right now, it seems like.
Yeah.
But as far as superhero comics, the comics are probably meaningless in the grand scheme of things for these big companies. It's about the IP. It's about I think Lee is right in that, because all of these movies, they've all basically pulled stuff straight from comic books somewhere. Maybe not an exact arc, but the stuff comes from some reference point that some comic book creators made. They probably still want that, and so it's an investment as far as that goes. But the question then becomes, how creative are they really going to be? Or is this going to be the mediocre drone of minimal stuff? We're not going to get. We certainly won't see another Tom King run or that sort of thing that gets too navel gazing on Batman or that sort of stuff. It's got to stick to being a superhero comic. Is my suspicion is potentially is what's going to happen.
Well, here, let me. We may have jumped some or information from Lee himself that we're talking around. So I want to get to that, and also to show where your reaction is coming from. I think so. And this was earlier on in the interview. Lee said, "It is still the cornerstone, publishing comic books is still the cornerstone of everything that we do." Of course, he would say that. "The need for storytelling, updating the mythology is vital to what we do." He does talk about wanting to reach global audiences, which, yeah, what company wouldn't want to do that? Sell more to more people. We see comics as helping drive that awareness and that international brand. And he said this a couple of times in this interview, talking about the international aspects of what DC Comics is, which I thought was interesting. That said, he said, we will be reducing the size of the slate. So that's, you know, the timing of the November solicitations with this interview just was, you know, an interesting coincidence, but it's about but it's about looking at everything and looking at the bottom 20%, 25% of the line that wasn't breaking even or was losing money. It's about more punch for the pound, so to speak, and increasing the margins of the books that we are doing. It was about aligning the books to the franchise brand content we've developed and making sure that every book we put out for a reason. And this is where, before I was like concerned about the future of comics and all this stuff, and I read that, I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Well, okay, so let's parse this out. So I understand it's a bad time economically, so the company has to make some cuts. I totally get that. It hurts me personally because I'm losing some books that I maybe really enjoy. That makes sense. I think you already touched on this a little bit. The Batman, the Supermans, the sales of those help foster an environment that allows them to produce lower selling books. Right. And if they're not making enough money, those books can't exist. It's just simple economics. But aligning the books to the franchise brand, he's just starting to spout marketing terms at this point.
Yep.
And that's where I'm like, is this a talking point he was given, or I'm not sure. Like you said, is he talking to AT&T through this interview, or I don't know. Make sure that every book we put out for a reason. What did they do before this happened? Then is that not what the point of publishing the DC Comics universe? Isn't that the point? I don't understand this.
Right.
So yeah, like you were saying, we're going to get more. We're going to get more Batman books. We're going to get more of the Trinity, perhaps. Things like what's going on right now with death metal and whatnot. We're going to get these big, bombastic, probably well-selling runs of things that, although I don't really understand how, because point taken, I'm not reading the death metal stuff.
Yeah, me neither.
But how does that, what did they say? How does that align to the franchise brand content they're developing? And if so, if death metal is indicating that is the brand content they're developing, what the hell are they doing? What does that mean for the future of the DC universe, generally speaking? So, but yeah, more Batman books, basically less risk-taking for other characters, titles, concepts.
Yep. Which is unfortunate because,
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like a good Batman book. I'm almost always buying a Batman book. I like that character. I like exploring that character. Why not? But I love all that. I love the let's take a risk. Let's tell a story that's not the standard whatever. But I'm not the person to cater to, I guess, either. I'm a over 40-year-old white guy that's going to drop dead at some point here, and will not be I'm not the new consumer, right? Mm-hmm. So,
well, okay. Since you're talking, perfect segue. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So you got us old fogies who will, pry our print comics from our cold dead hands, right? But we mentioned earlier about the digital aspects of this, right? Selling digital content, producing a trade, etc. So on that note, I'm going to segue into this through the DC Universe app. One of the things they talked about was, so what's going to happen to the DC Universe app, of which I am a subscriber. I have loved having that, the digital comics accessible to me through that app. I've watched the TV series and movies and stuff that they have on there. That's fine. But really for me, that $8 a month has been well spent in reading digital comics, mostly old content that I never purchased. And I either couldn't find it, or don't want to spend the money on those old back issues. And they were there. And, I read, if you go by the current price of current retail price of comics, you read 3 comics and you've already paid for your monthly subscription,
right?
For that, and I'm reading far more than 3 a month. So, to me, it was a total no-brainer as to why I would subscribe and read those comics. Mm-hmm. So when I heard the news that they let go of a lot of staff for the DC Universe app, I got very concerned. So what's going to happen with that, right? So Lee said the original content that is on DCU is migrating to HBO Max. Well, I think we all kind of knew, we saw the writing on the wall when they announced HBO Max anyway.
Well, a couple months ago, they basically quit allowing you to do a yearly subscription for the DC Universe.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Because that's what I have. I just went, well, it's going to take me that long probably to watch all the stuff. I've read maybe 4 comics on that thing. Because I don't want to sit around on my television and read comics. But
that's right, because you don't have a tablet.
right.
big enough for that.
But things like the Doom Patrol show,
Oh,
I
yeah.
definitely wanted to see that. So I fronted a year's worth of for the thing. Put my money where stuff I want to consume, and then they put out this thing saying that there is not going to. I mean, they didn't say it was ending, but my first thought is, well, if you aren't going to continue to take my money on a annual basis, that means you must have some sort of plan that you're not going to be around.
See, I didn't realize they had done that.
Yeah,
because like I said, I'm a monthly subscriber. I didn't pay for that year.
Right, and that was I want to say a month or two ago, they put that out saying that you can no longer subscribe to it annually. So, yeah.
And I take it you are not an HBO Max subscriber.
I am not. But if they're going to continue to produce Doom Patrol, I will become an HBO Max.
That show alone will get you to go to HBO.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, I know my wife will be pleased if we decide to go to HBO because she, Game of Thrones was on HBO and there's other things that she would like to watch. So I can easily convince her to for us to subscribe to that. But anyway, so that that's the I love how they refer to it as original content.
Right.
It's all original content, but they're talking about the other media stuff.
Around that, though, is my understanding is that they basically told HBO Max to quit creating so much stuff either. I mean, if you want to get into the, deeper into the woods of conspiracy, is AT&T trying to be creative, or are they just trying to, have just a general grind of stuff? My understanding is that HBO canceled a bunch of stuff that was going to be produced on that platform. So I don't know how much of that original content from the DC universe it might make great over there to be watched, but is it going to continue to be produced?
Yeah.
Is a whole nother.
Well, I would expect a certain amount of that stuff would not, and obviously Stargirl, which is a newer show to the DC universe. They've already talked about the second season.
Well, it's on CW though too, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they were doing both, but the second season is going to debut on CW, and not be on. I think not be on DC Universe.
I don't know.
So there's that. Okay, but on the comic side of the DC Universe app, so he says in regards to the community and experience that DCU created, I don't know about that, and all the backlist content. Actually, I will say, I'm amazed at how many people actually go onto the DC Universe app and comment. Like on Twitter, we would do that, right? So, well, a lot of people just go on the DC Universe app and I see this stuff. I don't read a lot of it, but it's like, okay, well, apparently a lot of people do make use of that, I suppose. I'm just there to consume the content that's there. Anyway, so he says something like 20,000 to 25,000 different titles they have. I don't know about titles, maybe issues. I don't know how. Anyway, there's always going to be a need for that, he says. So we're excited to transform it, and we'll have more news on what that will look like. It's definitely not going away. Which, like I said, for me, if they're going to continue to provide those digital comics, that backlog of content, I will happily still pay for that access. So that's good news. Okay, but he does say, in terms of the future, you'll definitely see more. I mentioned this before. See more international content, whatever that means. You're going to see more digital content. So which seems to go along with that whole idea, that question earlier about. Right. Are we just going to be producing digital and doing trade collections and OGNs? Well, that kind of suggests maybe. When you talk about growing our business, both physical and digital, to me, the opportunities are global. So that's what they'll be focusing on. He says also later, with digital, we'll go out there with digital content, and the stuff that performs well in digital also performs well in print. Which seems to be the case based on what I've been kind of gleaning from sales. So, but it's still kind of, I don't know.
They're not. I don't know. I think that's weird. They're largely two different consumers, though. Largely, it's two different consumers. The people who read digitally are not the consumers who read in print.
Oh, I don't think he's suggesting that. It's just that because there are those two different groups of people, buyers, that it's not having stuff digitally has not had an impact on the sales of the print stuff. So they're both, whatever the numbers are, because they never talk about the numbers, but apparently both are doing well enough from his perspective. So we're using that as a model as we go out and do more digital content, which makes Travis cringe. We'll take the most successful books and repackage it as physical books. I think there is definitely business to be had in physical periodicals. Again, he does the I think. But that said, I think there's greater upside in digital because we can go to a more global audience and the barrier to entry, especially in this pandemic, is lower. It's a lot easier to get digital content into the hands of consumers that want to read stories.
Sure. Well, that's for sure. I don't have to expose myself to anything to go get a digital book. That's for sure.
Yeah, very true.
The death of me reading comic books. There it is.
I'm very curious because I know how you feel about reading digital comics, and this seems to suggest that is the focus thrust direction that they seem to be going in. So what does that mean for you? What's your reaction to that?
I am hoping that some other part of the market figures out how to survive. And I will consume DC as a piece of pop culture as opposed to what it has been in my past. I'm kind of doing that to a degree anyway. My DC poll just continues to get smaller and smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So if they go basically digital, I won't consume DC comics. I will, like I said, I'll consume the pop culture stuff, the movies, that sort of thing, because it's still fun. I still like the universe. But I doubt that I will venture into that. Won't force me to venture into digital comics. The only thing that's going to force me to venture into digital comics is if there are no more physical comics, or physical comics become so incredibly cost prohibitive that I can't justify getting them. I don't know where that price point is. I have no idea, but because I'm one of those people who buys vinyl records. So, so if there is some market out there that still exists in physical comics, whatever that is, as long as they can figure out how to operate in a way that, like I said, the price point isn't insane, I will continue to read physical comics and not read that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If Marvel and DC go to purely digital and the occasional, trade that they can put out in a book form, I might read the trade, or I might read a few and find out that it was written in small little chunks and then slapped together, which I don't enjoy that. If you're going to give me a book, write it as a book. That's another conversation, but I won't get it. I'll take my ball and go home. I mean, I don't know what's this.
That was my question though, is if that comes to pass, and I'm not saying that it will, or that's what he's really suggesting, but if it is, a lot of the content they produce will be digital first, and then they put out trades. So you're getting that physical copy that you like to read, which I do too. Yeah, would that make you more or less inclined to buy that material, I guess? And so you're saying it depends.
Probably not. Yeah, well, yeah, it depends, but probably not. I occasionally say, well, I'll pick that up in trade, but how often do I really do that? Not very often.
And see, that's interesting, because I have basically more or less switched over to a trade reading.
Right. Well, I know lots of people who have.
Yeah. And really that's just more about economics, because you can get 5 or 6 issues in a trade format at a lower price point. And so then I'm kind of, what is the correct economical term? Am I amortizing? No, that's not right. But I'm deferring the cost or the expenditure by waiting for the trade, so I'm not having to buy all those issues. Plus, the other reason I've done this, Travis, and I've talked to you about this off mic, but I'm running out of space in my house for these monthly issues. I really well, my trade too. I have 3 bookshelves, and they're almost completely full. I just have no more space, so I'm trying to figure out how to navigate those waters. And at first, it was okay. I'm going to buy more trades and less issues, but again, I'm still running out of space, so I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Well, in that aspect, clearly digital is the way to go as far as that goes.
Yeah, except for, if they're still going to charge $3.99 for a book digitally, that we can't
digitally, right?
I don't have the file, right? That's long been our issue with especially Marvel and DC stuff.
Right.
I have recently purchased a bunch of digital comics through some various sales. Humble Bundle, I bought a couple of those, and at least those I can get the PDFs. And I have those that I can read on my computer, on my iPad, So I have those. I could store those. They're mine. I can even share them with you if I wanted to.
Right.
So there's that aspect of it. So I guess I'm not totally opposed to this idea. But it is a very strange concept for us. Again, I'm feeling anxious or concerned about what the future of comics holds, because we've lived with a particular model for so long.
Sure.
And so how much of this is just, old white guys complaining about change, right?
Right. 100%. That's exactly what it is. I don't change it because of me. I mean, when I'm dead or gone or so senile that I can't collect comic books, then do whatever the hell you want to, because I don't care then, right?
What does the future hold? Since it's a younger market, and they're used to consuming things in this way, and print is dead, and all that, right?
Well, and like I said, my concern about this isn't just DC Comics. It's if all of this DC content goes to digital first, none of the direct market's gone, then it just is. It's just whatever, even if they put it all out in trades, it's still 30% or whatever it is, 35%, whatever DC holds. It's that much of the market that's no longer in the direct market. Does that pull the legs out from their distribution enough to collapse the whole thing? So then nobody can get there, because we have this horrible just Diamond as a distributor model. Does it crash the whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
That's my concern.
Yeah.
That I don't get all the other stuff that I am interested in or whatever, or it's just too damn expensive. Too damn expensive for me, and too damn expensive for the creators. Even if the creators are selling it from their house, and I have to individually hunt down every single, book, not from a company, but from a single person, a la Kickstarter or whatever. I don't know. Because once you start pulling the machine apart, there's all this stuff that we don't think about, the printers, the whatever, all that. If you're not printing the book anymore, do those printers survive losing 35% of their business?
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly those printing places close down, and then there's only 2 or 3 printing places and whatnot. And so then it becomes really, comic books are already a niche market. Then they really you become one. There's a chain of events that possibly, if I want to be really totally doom and gloom about it, that could collapse a bunch of stuff.
That's true. Yeah. We talk a lot about the distribution. Basically, there's a monopoly there. And yeah, you're right. What happens in the printing side, where you only the biggest printers can survive, and what does that do for the cost and distribution of things?
Well, and a lot of that stuff is that maybe a 20,000 print run, or in the case of an independent book, a 12,000 print run isn't worth their time to print.
Exactly. Yep.
So then we lose all that.
Yep.
They can fit that in while they're doing the big stuff. But if the big stuff doesn't exist anymore, I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. May you live in interesting times is the curse that I often hear.
Right. I mean, what it really comes down to, though, is our version of comics are looking scary.
Yeah.
No, comics aren't looking scary.
No.
Comics is actually a very healthy industry. If you look beyond the direct market and you look beyond superheroes, there's clearly a lot going on. There's billions of dollars being sold in a market that we generally don't talk about at all. So,
yeah.
But it would be weird if suddenly DC becomes this small little, basically the core members of the Justice League are the only people who have books, and
not even the core members. We
only see books every quarter. Physical copies every quarter. I don't know. That's gonna be weird.
It just occurred to me. I remember us having discussions similar to this about what the future holds for comics, and even 20 years ago, we were talking about a trade model of publication. So yeah, it's really interesting how this stuff never seems to really change, or these thoughts, these speculations go away after all this time. So I don't know. I guess what's the takeaway? The more things change, the more they stay the same. I don't know. Except
for right now, I really feel like the whole COVID-19 and basically Diamond just deciding they're not going to, they're not going to ship anything and they're not going to pay any people for those couple months or whatever. That was enough of a push. To push things over the cliff. Whereas this whole time we've kind of talked about this and we toy with it every so many years or have this conversation or whatnot. There's been enough of us to hang on to the old machine, the old way it was, to kind of keep it eking along. But this may have been the thing that broke it enough for people to really go fundamentally, okay, we're doing it now. It's happened. We're doing it. Or these giant parent companies who we feel like are very far removed from what superhero comics are owning this stuff, that they're going to do that.
And inserting themselves into the day-to-day operation. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, what the takeaway, I think, after all this conversation is that we don't know what the hell's going to happen, and we're a little leery about what that may entail, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So there you go. After about an hour of listening to us, that's really what we were talking about. But still, before I go there, was there anything else that we haven't touched on that you wanted to get into?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So, really, Travis, this was mostly just an excuse for me to get to talk to you about comics again. So I really appreciate you taking the time on your Sunday morning to,
sure,
because I know you have work stuff going on too.
Yes,
on top of this, so I really appreciate you coming on and talking about our beloved DC Comics and what the future may hold for comics in general. It'll be very interesting to monitor this situation and what the impact will be, not just to DC Comics, as you said. Boy, yeah, it's interesting times. Like I said, I don't know what to say beyond that. So I guess it's time to sign off, Travis.
Okay.
All right. So like I said, Travis does, when he has time, he does comic book commentary on his YouTube channel, and that's at. Go ahead, Travis. Where can they find you there?
Oddfellows Thoughts. Oddfellows Thoughts on YouTube. You just type that in, you'll find me.
And where can they, like on Twitter, how can they message you and say, Travis, you are an industry genius and they should hire you to run DC Comics?
Yes. So on Twitter, I am _man.
All right. Well, like I said, thank you, Travis. I appreciate you coming on talking about this stuff with me, and I hope we can do this more often and maybe not talk about such dire things about
right.
comic books.
Let's celebrate comics
Yes.
as opposed to burying them.
Perfect ending. There we go. So, but if people would like to send me some comments or opinions, they can do so by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com, or go to the website longboxreview.com, and you can leave comments where this episode will be posted. And as always, you can tweet at me at longboxreview. Everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks, Travis. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.